Learning how to learn is probably the single most important skill that you could ever gain in your life because it impacts every single part of said life. And yes, I am using two microphones because it's kind of fun. Whether that's learning a new job, a new skill, a new hobby, whether that's learning to run a business or learn a language, just like sales and marketing, you'll use it in everything that you do. And as the holidays on this side of the world and some books about the very specific topic has been added into my reading list, as well as some very well made YouTube videos about it, like The 4 Things It Takes to Be an Expert by Veritasium. I was looking over my past progress and analytics for both the business and this YouTube channel because I have a nice little folder full of screenshots for that. It's a small thing, but it actually helps a lot. Anyways, because I always like to look at the best months because I always like to look at the best months that I performed, whether video wise on the views that I got in or in business on the best months that I made the most amount of money in, because it's just helpful to look at that time and see, okay, these videos, what was I doing then in terms of ideas, in terms of checklists, in terms of the things that I was focusing on and the procedures I did for that. In terms of business, okay, the clients that I had then, what did I do to get them? What kind of avatar-ish did they fit? How can I replicate that and improve on it? And that's especially important because, I felt that I've been going through a huge rut recently. Sure, even if the circumstances for it were entirely outside of my control, but still. Analyzing it made me realize something, but before that, we need to understand how skill acquisition works. I'm sure you've had this familiar feeling before, but you're starting something new, like picking up a new hobby or skill. The first few times that you're sitting down to practice it are so reinforcing and motivating because you're learning so much with each time and you're improving so much with each time. But then eventually it hits. It hits you like a truck, like your first rejection when you were 13, or reading, unfortunately, from an email about a job application that you were really looking forward to. The plateau. I mean, you're still putting in the time, you're still putting in the effort, but no matter what you do, you just cannot break that ceiling. And with no idea why or how to fix it, most people just feel, you know what, this isn't for me, I gave it my shot, and then we move on to something else. But I mean, there are still world-class people at whatever the thing that we feel inclined to give up on. They're not made of anything different than us, so what's different? The point where we come into problem is that the expectation that skill learning is something that is linear. The more time you put in equally, the more skill that you will gain from it. But that isn't exactly true, and I'll give you a perfectly clear example for that. Say that you're learning a new language. At the very first period of it, you're learning a whole bunch of new grammar and vocabulary that you feel you're able to use. And so you feel that you're progressing really quickly by being able to make a few simple sentences. But then you enter the trudge and the rut of the intermediate hell. At that point, you feel that no matter how many hours you're putting into it, you just aren't improving, and you can't see why. You're making the same mistakes, you're going through the same issues, but it seems like your brain isn't exactly adapting to it. Until suddenly one day you wake up and things feel so much easier and you're able to understand so many more things better about the grammar, about being able to hear and understand the words easier in every single level. So what changed? What changed is that your brain has finally adapted and rewired itself in order to improve at that particular thing that you're learning. And this applies to more things than we realize. And sure, there are some more linear skills out there, like learning how to solve a Rubik's Cube faster or learning how to run a mile quicker. But those are just way more straightforward adaptations. It applies even to stuff that aren't exactly tied together between the input and the output. Take this channel for example. I've had a few periods now where I was just uploading videos normally without any different massive change to them, and then suddenly I understand something better and I put a video out and it gets 20 times more the views and the subscribers of the ones before. Or business ventures. Like I have a month where I outreach well to a particular client and I land them and I make more money that month than the last 4 combined. The point where I messed up is something called the automaticity trap. It's the idea of that for you to learn and improve in anything, there are 4 components that need to be present simultaneously. And to illustrate our example, we're gonna use Dark Souls. I know it may sound weird, but stick with me on this. Firstly, you need the actions and the outcomes to be predictable. Imagine that each time you mash a button, it is mapped to something completely different than what you're expecting, and it never stays consistent. You never learn and improve. You need to do it a lot of times, and seeing as Dark Souls is the game that it is, you die hundreds of times each time for you to be able to learn and get past the obstacle that you're in. Third, and that's the one that actually matters for this, is that you need to practice it with intentional and complete focus. You can't be multitasking while doing that thing and expecting yourself to improve, because your brain will just default to autopiloting and doing the bare minimum to get the thing done. And seeing as with Dark Souls you can't take your eyes away for a moment because everyone will kill you in like 3 hits, it kind of fulfills that as well. And finally, you need clear and immediate feedback, because that's what actually gives you the data in order to be knowing that, hey, I did this wrong, or hey, I did this right. And it can come in the form of clear, structured explanation of like, hey, you did this particular area wrong because you did it like that when you should have been doing it like this. Or it can be just in the familiar game screen sound of... Now, if you lose any one of these components, you will never improve at whatever you are doing, and you will stay exactly the same as you are. And the automaticity trap is what happens when you lose the intentional and complete focus in trying to improve area, and then just rely on going through the motions. Even though the other 3 might be perfectly present as is, I'm sure we all know people that have lived in a foreign country for like years, maybe decades, but even then they're not fluent in the language. I mean, the language certainly hasn't changed. It's the same grammar and same vocabulary. They've had plenty of times to interact with it because they're interacting with the world there. They've had clear feedback because people will obviously correct them, because who doesn't love doing it? But even with all of that, they never improved because they saw their current level as, it's good enough. I mean, it's fine. I'm not having any issues. So they stay in that level of ability. People drive cars, well, most ones, I don't really have experience with that. They drive for like 50 years or something, but not everyone is an F1 driver because they never improved past the point that they need. So how does this apply to running a business? Finally, tying all this back together. Well, if we aren't making the amount of money that we want to make, then it's because we are not as good as we think we are. And that means that there is someone that is better, that is taking those profits. So take that in for a moment, because it means we are not good enough. Whether that's because of lazy reach outs, bad communications, late turnaround times, or just being bad at selling or marketing yourself. I likely don't even need to tell you what the issue is. You already know it deep down, but you've just been sweeping it under the rug, same way that I was. So how do we fix this? Because we know it's holding us back. Well, someone is clearly doing whatever the thing that you're struggling with better than you. That's how they are making that money. So the obvious choice is to analyze whatever they're doing and learn how we can adapt it into our own situation. I'll take video editing as an example because that is what I do. If I want to improve my videos, I will need to look at other businesses, other creators, other media companies putting out content, and take apart their work in order to learn whatever I can for the part that I'm trying to improve for myself. Like how they structure their videos to tell their message, the script writing style for their word, their transitions, their animations, their color grading. Maybe it's just the way that they come up with ideas, and using that on the somewhat predictable environment of YouTube, it's kind of like 70%-ish skill. Deeply focusing on learning and adapting those areas into my work, doing it plenty of times, and seeing the feedback if I get more views on my videos. 4. then my content will undoubtedly improve, which means more samples, which means more conversion rates, which means more clients and more money for videos that I obviously can charge more for since they are better in quality. And you can do the same thing for your own business by specifying what metric that you are trying to improve for your own business. Maybe it's the reply time to inquiries from clients, and then just see how other people do it well and copy that part. Standardizing the communication platform that you send messages back and forwards on, setting up alerts, having some auto replies on some common phrases or common questions, specifying what hours you know you'll be able to reply almost immediately, giving clear updates based on certain milestones, and on and on and on. You can probably guess that this video is inspired a bit by Steal Like an Artist. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. And with that, if you're not struggling, you're not growing. Repeat that in mind. And with that, bye.